Hello everyone, this is Daughter Darkness, and today is the first film review on this channel, and this is something that I've kind of thought about doing as part of the sort of new start of the channel, where whenever I go to the cinema and see a film that's just come out, I then talk about it on the channel. And well, what better place to start than the biggest film of the year and the decade possibly, which is of course Avengers: Infinity War. For context, I don't read Marvel comics. I just don't really read comic books that much. It's not really for me. But I have been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe since Iron Man first released in 2008, and then sort of really religiously following it since the Avengers in 2012. And within the MCU, I have enjoyed every film. To varying extents, of course. There are some that aren't the best, but they're still enjoyable enough, and then there are others that are brilliant. That going into it is of course a huge part of my opinion about the film, and this is a film that you really can't take in isolation, because so much has been building up towards this for so long. This is just not, a film by itself. It is the product of all the build-up of the last 10 years. So I will be starting off spoiler-free for the first few minutes, and then I'll give a clear warning, and the majority of the video is going to be including spoilers. When I say spoiler-free, I will potentially be talking about stuff that appeared in trailers. That stuff's sort of been public footage for quite a while, and at this point it's not really spoilers to talk about the trailers. Okay, so let's get into it, and the first thing you obviously notice, there are lots of main characters in this film, because the vast majority of, certainly heroes, from the past 10 years of Marvel films all appear here. You've got the Avengers, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Black Panther, so on, so on, so on. And I think the film does about as good a job balancing all this as it's possible to do. No character here feels irrelevant, although I think, there are certain characters that are probably in the limelight a bit more than the others, and they're the obvious ones: Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, the kind of original Avengers. They play a bigger part than most, but, even the smaller characters, Mantis, Wong, Shuri, Okoye, whoever, they all have a part to play. And I think that's a really good thing for this, sort of finale part 1 of the MCU. As far as Thanos is concerned, he is the closest thing this film has to a main character. He's the villain that's been built up for 6 years, and I have no hesitation in saying that of all the villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, Thanos is the best. Because we really get inside his head. And while what he's doing is horrendous and the stuff that he wants to do is awful, we go into detail about exactly why he thinks that what he's doing is right, and I think that's how you make a really good villain. He doesn't think that he's a villain, he thinks he's doing a service to the universe, and it's a spiritual journey for him, and that's why I think, while sort of look-wise he looks better in his armour, I like the way that he's not wearing his armour for most of this film. Of course, this is a Marvel film, which means there's going to be a lot of humour, and that is very much true here. But I think that it doesn't go too far in the way that Thor Ragnarok did, because it knows when to be serious. The tense and emotional moments are allowed to be tense and emotional. They're not constantly undercutting them with jokes, so I think that works because humour is part of the joy of watching these characters interact with each other. Star-Lord and Iron Man meeting wouldn't be that fun if they weren't having some jokes and jabs at each other. I will say this is very much a very intense film. It starts up here, and it stays up here. There are very few quiet moments for the whole film, which is what you expect given that we've had all the build-up and all the quiet moments over the last 10 years. It's quite a lot to take in, but it's still a thrilling experience. I know, when I left the cinema, it's the first time I've ever left the film and just there's been silence. Everyone was kind of stunned by everything that had happened and everything that had to be taken in. So what I will say, if you haven't watched all of the MCU up to this point, this film doesn't really have much to offer you on its own, because that's not really what the film's for. The whole of the MCU is better than the sum of its parts, and I think this is one of the best parts, because it's everything that's been built up to, and it's a really satisfying, not quite conclusion, but conclusion part 1. And if you have followed the MCU like I have over the past few years, it's amazing. It's exactly the sort of film that I would have wanted. And while it is the part 1 of the Infinity War, even though, Avengers 4 is going to have a different name and it's not Infinity War Part 2, it does have a very distinct ending. It's just an ending that also allows for another film, and that's pretty much the perfect way to balance it. If you like Marvel films, you will like this film. It's a lot to take in, but it's such a great ride. And now we're going on to spoilers. So the first scene picks up exactly where Thor Ragnarok left off. We've got Asgard being intercepted by Thanos' ship, and everyone dies, basically. Loki has the Tesseract, he, surprise surprise, stole it from Asgard just before it got destroyed. And this scene does really work to show how strong Thanos is. You know, you see the Incredible Hulk, who has kind of obliterated 2 of the last 2 Avengers villains, and he is just sort of floored by Thanos, who's only got 1 of the Infinity Stones at this point. And 2 extremely powerful, long-running characters from the MCU, Loki and Heimdall, are both just killed with no effort from Thanos, and I think that is a really good statement of intent. But of course, this also serves to set the various plot lines of this film in motion. Everything is about the Infinity Stones, but we've really got 4 plot lines going on at once. As I said, this is quite intense. So we've got Thanos' search for the Reality Stone and the Soul Stone, then we've got Thor's search to find a new weapon that can defeat Thanos, and then 2 teams of Avengers trying to protect the 2 other remaining Infinity Stones. A lot's going on, and I think it's best to just take each of these plots in order and talk about them. So we'll start with the least interesting of all of the side plots, and that's Thor's quest to find a new hammer. It's the most straightforward, and it is the least interesting, but that's not to say it's bad. Mjolnir was obviously destroyed by Thor's sister back in Ragnarok, so now he needs a new weapon. And he meets up with the Guardians of the Galaxy and tells them what Thanos is doing and everything. So they split into 2 teams, Rocket and Groot join Thor, while Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax and Mantis go off to try and stop Thanos from getting the Reality Stone. Thor goes to Nidavellir. I hope I said that right, but I mean, they kind of say it quickly and use the name as a joke, so whatever. And he goes to meet Eitri, the dwarf, played by Peter Dinklage, who is a giant, which, I don't know, that's just an amusing thing to do. So they make this new hammer slash axe. You know, he goes saying it's a hammer, and then Peter Dinklage says, oh, it's an axe, whatever. It doesn't really matter, it's a very powerful weapon. It turns out Eitri is the one who made the Infinity Gauntlet for Thanos. I quite like that they closed off that little unanswered question, because as it was in Age of Ultron, it just seemed like Thanos just had an Infinity Gauntlet lying around. It's good to see he's actually got a backstory of how he got that. So it's fairly simple, but I think Thor and Rocket bounce off each other quite well. Their interactions are fun throughout this storyline. And then, as far as Groot's concerned, the moment when he cuts off his arm to provide the handle for Thor's new weapon and save Thor's life as well, I think that's a really nice moment. So this pretty much just happens for Thor to be able to take on Thanos and not be completely defeated by him easily as he was at the start of the film. It's done well enough, and then they run off to Wakanda, which we'll get to quite a lot later in the video. So that's all fine, nothing spectacular, it's the other stories that are really the meat of this film. So starting with our villain, Thanos, and his search for the Reality Stone and the Soul Stone. He knows where the Reality Stone is, he goes to the Collector and kills him and destroys everything. And this is all conveniently done off screen, because we don't have to remember that the Reality Stone is not actually a stone in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's just already on the gauntlet, so we don't have to worry about that. Thank you, Thor: The Dark World. I like the use of the Reality Stone in this scene to create a different scene for the Guardian to experience, because as far as they know, Thanos doesn't already have it. And obviously in Thor: The Dark World, this was used to turn off lights. So it's nice to see it actually used to bend reality and give people illusions and all that kind of stuff. The deal agreed between Peter and Gamora going into this scene, I think it was a nice thing to have between them. Because it's obviously quite a horrible thing to have to agree, but it shows Peter might be immature, but ultimately he does care about Gamora, even if he has to do the most horrible thing to her. And then the last time they see each other, Peter tries to kill her, and she confesses her love to him because he was willing to kill her. And then of course the Reality Stone messes it up, but it just makes it a really tragic end, surprisingly for one of the most light-hearted parts of the MCU. the Guardians films being fairly light-hearted, but they also seem to be quite emotional with the way Guardians 2 ended and now this. So anyway, Thanos captures Gamora and they go off to search for the Soul Stone. She knows where it is and he tortures Nebula and forces her to give him the information. And then there's some nice moments there between Gamora and Thanos where we kind of see why she hates him so much. But we also get to see a bit about that he actually does love her. It wasn't just a professional arrangement trying to raise a warrior or anything. He genuinely loves her as a daughter. And that's why their relationship has a tragic end as well, because Thanos is forced to kill her to get the Soul Stone. There's a nice little surprise here with the Soul Stone being guarded by Red Skull minus Hugo Weaving, and he returns to guide Thanos and Gamora there. It's a good reference and it closes off a little loose end from Phase 1, so who knows, maybe the leader from the Incredible Hulk's going to be showing up sometime soon. So yeah, as I mentioned before, I really like Thanos as a villain. As he's going on this journey, we're starting to understand why he's going on the journey. It's an important spiritual quest for him. He's not just doing it because, grr, I'm evil, as, you know, say, Ronan the Accuser from Guardians of the Galaxy wanted to destroy Xandar because he was angry. Thanos really does believe he's doing the right thing here, and that's why he's willing to murder his own daughter to do it. Then of course Thanos goes to his home planet, Titan, to retrieve the Time Stone and the Mind Stone, but having sent his servants to Earth to collect them, instead he is greeted with the Avengers and the remaining Guardians. So let's get on to plot number 3, which is about protecting the Time Stone. So the Incredible Hulk had been sent away to Earth by Heimdall in his last moments, and he arrives with Doctor Strange. They call Iron Man, and then Thanos' friends attack. Doctor Strange is captured because he's got the Time Stone. Spider-Man shows up, and him and Iron Man go off and save Doctor Strange. But then they go to Titan and all that. I like Doctor Strange quite a lot in this film. He was honestly one of my least favourite characters so far. Doctor Strange I don't think was a particularly great film. I don't think it was bad, but I never really cared about Doctor Strange himself. But I do quite like him in this film, as he kind of sees the more professional and colder side of things. Like the moment when he says to Tony Stark, if I can save you or the boy, i.e. Spider-Man, or save the Time Stone, I'm saving the Time Stone, because he ultimately wants to do what is right for the universe. And that's his sort of professional distance that makes him an interesting character. And then their meeting with Star-Lord, Mantis and Drax was quite a fun scene. It had the most funny moment for me of the entire film. Star-Lord says, "Where is Gamora?" Doctor Strange says, "I'll top that. Who is Gamora?" And then Drax goes, "I'll top that. Why is Gamora?" And that just really killed me when I was watching it in the cinema. So they successfully ambush Thanos together after working out their differences, and then they actually would be able to defeat him, but Star-Lord loses it. And I've seen quite a bit of Star-Lord hate from people who've seen this film, but I think that's the point. He's not a superhero, he's not an Avenger, he's just a guy going around trying to have fun. And he's in it because Gamora is in trouble. He's not in it to save the universe, that's just like an extra thing he has to do. And I think that showing his immaturity and lack of professionalism in doing it compared to, say, Iron Man, even Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, who would not do this in an instant regardless of what happened, I think that's just a really nice moment to show how he's out of his depth. Then Thanos basically just destroys them all without killing anyone. The moment when it looked like Iron Man was going to die, I thought was really nice. There was like a collective gasp in the cinema when that happened, and it was nice to see Doctor Strange then warming to Iron Man enough throughout their experiences that he then gives up the Time Stone to save Iron Man. Though that probably just means that Iron Man's going to be part of destroying Thanos, because Doctor Strange knows the way that we're going to win, which is why it's convenient he's no longer with us. Then of course Thanos goes to Earth to collect the final Infinity Stone on Wakanda, because in their quest to protect the Mind Stone, Vision and Scarlet Witch are attacked by Thanos' people, then they're rescued by Captain America, Black Widow and the Falcon. And seeing Steve for the first time in this film, like, that was one of the moments that made me smile, as well as another one later on here. It just felt really nice to see him finally reunited with some of the older Avengers. So then they go and meet up with War Machine and Bruce Banner, and they decide that they have to destroy the Mind Stone to stop Thanos from getting a hold of it. Vision obviously wants to sacrifice himself, but I think it shows that despite everything that went on in Civil War, they're still friends, and they're still brothers in arms and all that kind of stuff, because the only one willing to sacrifice Vision is Vision. And the whole "we don't trade lives" thing was a nice moment and pretty much sums up Steve's character a bit. So they go to Wakanda because, I mean, they know too how popular Black Panther is and how that's going to get more bums in seats. And also they have the technology to remove the Mind Stone without killing Vision, but that's another point. And then we get to the major set piece of the film, as Thanos' army comes to try and get hold of the Mind Stone, while Shuri is trying to remove it safely so Scarlet Witch can destroy it while leaving Vision alive. The fight scene, as expected, is very exciting visually, and it was nice seeing Bruce Banner here in the Hulkbuster armour because of that whole Hulk side plot that I haven't had time to get into, but that was another interesting thing to have. The relationship between Bruce Banner and the Hulk as a developing thing has been quite a nice part of the MCU. Then of course everything looks bad and Thor comes back with his new weapon in hand, as well as Groot and Rocket, and that scene actually gave me goosebumps, like Thor returning and the Avengers theme playing when he returns. That genuinely gave me goosebumps for Thor of all people. And then Thanos arrived, and this is where everything comes together, because all of the Avengers try to stop Thanos in turn, and he has very little effort put into it to get rid of all of them, as Scarlet Witch finally has to destroy Vision to destroy the Mind Stone and save the universe. And that moment was genuinely heartbreaking, because she's been doing everything she could to protect Vision this whole film, but ultimately she has to kill him. And I didn't even think about the Time Stone, and it meant that I thought, okay, well, this is how they defeat Thanos then, an emotional sacrifice, fine. But then Thanos uses the Time Stone, of course, to bring Vision back, and after one last attempt to kill him by Thor, he succeeds in his plan and he uses the Infinity Gauntlet to wipe out half the universe. And as much as I knew there was another film coming, this surprised me. I didn't think they'd let it be this bad. I thought it might be like, you know, he's got it, and maybe he's separated from the gauntlet or something that would just have a stay of execution for a little while. I didn't think he would actually succeed. And then everyone dies. Obviously seeing Black Panther, Spider-Man and so on die means, okay, yeah, we're obviously not going to have this as permanent thing because those guys need to be around for their next films. But it was still really shocking to see that we're now pretty much just left with the original lineup of Avengers, plus a few stragglers. And honestly, this was the perfect way to end the film, because it did just stun everyone. That's why everyone in the cinema was walking out in silence, because we were speechless. It's a good ending. It's a bad ending, of course, because bad things happen, but it is a very clear ending. The Avengers have lost. And yet, it still builds up the excitement for Avengers 4, because how are they going to get back from this? And then we have the post-credits scene, and Nick Fury and Agent Hill, shock horror, they die too. And then he sends a distress call to Captain Marvel to set up that film and Avengers 4, and I think that was a pretty good post-credit scene, and suggests that she's going to have a big role in Avengers 4. So, as someone who's been watching the MCU since the start, this film is everything I could have asked for. I could see that it might be alienating for more casual fans, but honestly, like, that's the point of this film. This is the product of build-up. If you don't see the build-up, you're not going to enjoy the film, so don't go and watch it and then complain about it. It is non-stop action that requires the knowledge of past films to really follow it properly, but it's still the perfect finale, part 1, of the first 3 phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So for me, it's absolutely brilliant. It was a great experience that actually surprised me. The ending did just stun me for a while. That's why it's been a few days since I saw it, and I'm only just making this video now. I needed a couple of days to digest it. And I'm also really excited for Avengers 4, and of course we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel to go first. But yeah, Infinity War, it's absolutely brilliant, and I really, really liked it. So, that's all I had to say. Please leave your thoughts about Infinity War in the comment section below the video. And while you're down there, please like this video if you did, and if you liked it, then check out my other videos and subscribe to this channel. And as always, thank you for watching.